Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to GameKeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the GameKeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
We're live in 3, 2, 1.
All right. Yeah. Welcome, everybody, back to the GameKeeper studio and the Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Building. Yeah, and everybody seems to be in really good spirits.
You got those springtime's coming.
It is not far away.
It didn't.
Yeah, well, you know, deer season today is the last day in Alabama. So
yeah, I can't, Vandy showed up today. It was kind of crazy. I'm like, why'd you show up on the last day of the season to work? You could have just waited till tomorrow.
Yeah, one more day.
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Well, I think he heard we had a king cake.
Yeah.
Could have been. So, well, there's a lot going on right now. We're getting ready for this duck banding project. So
yeah, I've been building duck traps in the GameKeeper garage back there. That's pretty cool.
And it's a really intricate duck trap.
It really is.
I don't know that I've ever seen a duck trap before, but supposedly they will swim right in this thing, and we'll be able to catch them. We're working with Mississippi State, Dr. Brian Davis, and we're going to be banding some ducks here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I don't think this thing has been done since the 90s down here, hasn't it?
Been a long time.
So maybe 30 years since there's been a winter banding project in Mississippi.
I think that's what he said. Yeah,
that's super exciting for us.
All that wildlife stuff at Mississippi State is so cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see the field work to help them too. So right now, what are we doing? I know we're priming our duck catching locations.
Yeah, that's right, and that's been done. I think there's 10 spots that are primed.
Is there a secret
good way of putting it?
Is there
primed?
Is there a secret way to do that?
I wasn't involved in the priming.
Oh, okay.
But I'm told we had a really good primer that primed them. So they are primed. Yeah, so right. Then Clay's supposedly going to build 5 traps.
Traps that they swim in.
It looks identical to those things they throw off the boat on that crabbing show.
Well, that doesn't look identical. Those are square.
Okay, these are round. It has the same little thing they go in.
So that's not identical.
They're made out of wire. Yeah.
Yeah, this doesn't have a bottom. But they swim into it. You're right. They're very similar.
Same concept. Same concept.
They swim in there.
Yeah. And so, before I forget it, I've been noticing in the last couple of days the launch of Mossy Oak DNA, and that may be the best camouflage pattern that I have seen us come up with in forever.
You like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the colors, and I love that bottomland background to it.
It looks good. I love anything with bottomland in it, that's for sure.
Oh, it looks good. I'm just so excited about that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good stuff.
Yeah, so I would encourage everybody to go to mossyoak.com and check that out.
Check it out.
Really good. Lanny, you look like you're fixing to say something. You kind of got this.
Well, I do. I love DNA, but I love habitat too.
It is good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, you love anything ducks.
Well, that's ducky, talking ducks. That's my head was on habitat.
Yeah.
So, but it's got bottomland in it too. So
anything that's got bottomland in it's just got a special place in our hearts.
I got bottomland on. Do I have a special place in your heart?
No, I didn't say you did.
Yeah, you just because it's springtime.
Yeah. So you made me forget what we were doing next.
We're talking about duck trapping.
Yeah,
there's ducks on the screen.
There is. I'm excited about the little project, and Clay's building these traps, and we should be. I think they're going to deploy 2 traps tomorrow
and start trying to catch them.
So everybody's waving at me.
Max got some interesting
I think he's got
facts
something to
over
say
there.
over
We got a fact check here. The MDWFP biologists and partners have banded approximately 13,000 mallards in Mississippi since 1949. The peak of the MDWFP winter banding occurred in the 70s and 80s.
So we're going to be the new chapter of duck banding in Mississippi.
I think it's going to be exciting when folks start collecting these bands and we start getting data, see what happens.
I hadn't even thought about that. But
so it'll be
interesting.
I assume they'll be highly collectible, especially being the first year it's been done.
Well, they'll be banded in the Mossy Oak bottomland woods.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Banding ducks. Guy had something cool to say, and I completely forgot. The old ADD kicked in pretty
Yours
bad.
is good.
Oh, there it is. Where'd it go?
Well, you are looking good in your. So I will tell everybody that the studio continues to evolve, and the lights are
Daily. It's kind of like your mood dressing. Yeah. You come in every day and you adjust it a little bit.
Yeah, we got we're 6 feet apart. We brought our ruler.
6 feet, yes.
Yeah, and we've got some nice taxidermy hanging up, and but it does look nice, but the lights aren't quite as bright, so you don't have to have your sunglasses.
Yeah, but I still love these. I tell you what, I just continue to be impressed with them. This is the favorite pair of shades I've ever had. I'm glad I stole them from you.
Yeah,
I think there was 2 in the box.
Well, there were. I'm not sure where the other pair is either, but somebody just slid some down here, so maybe
you should try them on.
These were the ones that were hidden for so long.
Yeah.
Well, I'm jealous.
I'm gonna say David McElwain had them.
Oh, you think so?
That sounds like something he would do.
Oh, man.
He looks like a movie director. What's that guy's name? Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Oh, an actor.
Totally.
Yeah. So is the studio look better through the loophole shades?
It does. I think everything looks a little better through those loophole glasses.
Oh, man. I hear you. Boy, you're talking about a selfless plug there. That's a great one.
It is.
I need some prescription lenses for mine.
I think they make them. I think you can order them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I might be wrong. Fact check me, Mac.
So, look, today's episode is brought to you by GameKeeperFieldwear.com. Now, did that make you remember what you were
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
okay.
GameKeeper did. Going back to the duck ponding. It's really, we talk about conservation. This is conservation in action. So I think that's really the coolest thing about it. I mean, we have talked about migrations and information and all this stuff for so many years, and now we're actually getting to be a part of it. So that's what's super cool to me about it.
Yeah. It is very cool.
Yeah, it is. Well, we're going to need everybody to help out because I think this project's going to last
several years, isn't it?
Well, yeah, several years, but it's going to last several weeks here once everything gets going.
But we'll document all this, aren't we? We're going to run the cameras.
Film, and
you're going to let Richie come out there.
And Richie's shaking his head.
Rich said he ain't catching no ducks.
Next week it's going to be really cold.
It is going to be very cold.
It's cold
as
I remember.
I call it bust your ass cold. You walk outside with it wet. It's 14 so cold.
Degrees.
It's going to be too cold to plant trees, even in Mississippi.
Yeah.
The Northerners are always saying, "Well, my ground's frozen. I can't."
You think we'll get a ground freeze?
I think so.
14 degrees.
And some of those models are saying much colder than what the Weather Channel, et cetera, is saying.
Might get that preseason turkey snow.
Yeah. There was a meteorologist out of Jackson, Mississippi yesterday, showing the live temps in like Oklahoma and Kansas and comparing it to the forecasted temps. And a lot of them were 5 to 10 degrees colder.
The old Arctic blast coming down.
It's so uncertain.
Well, it's going to be cold, that's for sure. And that should help our duck banding project. It should push down more ducks. Yeah. Richie, doesn't that excite you that you'll be
out there? He'll be out of the water in 14 degrees.
Yeah, I can tell he's excited.
Misery loves company.
Richie Davenport, the producer of the GameKeeper television show.
In the studio.
There he is, walking around. Oh, Richie.
Soon to be freezing in the bottom.
Richie, you got a bunch of youngins, don't you?
I got.
Well, if you nod your head, yes, nobody gets to hear that. Yeah. So you got to speak up, Richie.
Speaking to the microphone.
Yeah, I got 3 youngins running around.
Okay, why don't you give them a shout out?
Yeah, so I got a 12-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Yeah,
I almost forgot about that one.
Yeah, you would Charlie, Beth, and Dylan.
Yeah, what are their names? Maybe you can get them to listen to this.
Yeah,
shout out to them.
Yeah. We'll see what we can work out with them.
Okay.
We need every listener we can get, Richie.
Certainly, it's so. I started down the road of saying about the sponsors, GameKeeper Fieldwear. So they were telling me yesterday they've got this new bundle for the next 30 days. You get a pair of your choice of a dirt shirt, and then the CRP pants in any color, dirt or bottom lamp, whatever color you want, and a hat. There's a bundle, so you get the pants, the shirt, and the hat, and it's 30% off for the next 30 days.
Oh wow!
So they said if you'll just go to GameKeeperFieldwear.com, you'll see it.
See it up there on the banner.
Yeah.
Cool.
Get it while it's hot.
30% off. So we're excited about that. And then today's show, we've got David Hawley from Mossy Oak Properties.
Our good buddy, David Hawley.
And he's,
and the Wild Turkey Report.
He's like, it's during the day, he's new business development and manager for Mossy Oak Properties. But after work, he is
the
Wild Turkey Report.
He loves turkeys.
And he does. He loves turkeys more than anybody. More than me or you.
He may be the biggest Alabama fan too that we all know.
Why do you have to bring that up?
We could live without that.
I mean, come on.
What does that have to do with
Why do you have
anything?
to bring sports into everything?
We're trying to make people like us, Dudley.
Well,
We're not trying to run them off.
He's obsessed with Alabama football.
I think he's more obsessed with wild turkeys than anything, though. And it's been since, I've known him most of his life, and he's been that way since a very, very early age.
Yeah, I'm actually, he's actually been on David Letterman.
Yeah, Colin Turkey.
Yeah. So I'm hoping we can somehow share that as a part of the podcast, this video version that the guys are trying to put together. But I've got a couple of quick questions to ask him about his experience on the Letterman Show.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He can flat Yelp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can.
He's pretty deadly.
So what I'm thinking that we're going to end up talking about, hopefully I can keep everything, the legend of this turkey.
What's it called?
Well, that's kind of to be determined, but some people say the Moss Head, some people say the Mossy Head.
So, and what do you think it's referred to as?
I honestly don't really know, but I think it might be the Mossy Head. But
I'm going to go with the Moss Head.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dudley?
But
I want to say I heard a mentioning of Moss Head. Was that the old McElhenney book?
Yeah. And so, I guess we should probably talk about even what a moss head is, because I don't know. We're pretty steeped in turkey culture around here. So, maybe the deer guys don't even know what we're talking about.
Well, that's true. And then, and I think it might even be kind of limited to Alabama as well, too.
Or the
Alabama
deep
River
south
Swamp.
coastal plain.
That Clark County area where the turkeys a lot of the turkeys that were stocked in Alabama kind of came from.
Mm-hmm. And so, it's kind of like a legend. So to me, and I guess just like anything else, everybody's got their own interpretation. But a moss head to me is one of the native turkeys, from the area from before stocking, if there is one. And maybe there's not even one, but maybe there was one or two that made it, and then they ended up breeding with the turkeys that were finally introduced successfully. And then every now and then you have this genetic, I'm not going to call him a freak, but just kind of reaches back to that old, more expresses more the native, characteristics, which is darker, squattier, wider, lighter, bigger spurs, and a lightning bolt gobble.
It's a really interesting discussion, because the older somebody is, the more involved in this discussion they have more ability to talk about it. And so there's another guy that I've got that I want to have on later on in the podcast named Tim Cosby, who for over 30 years worked with the Alabama Department of Conservation. He was the chief law enforcement officer, big turkey hunter, and he's actually killed some moss or mossy heads, whatever you want to say.
And you're saying down there it's a cross between an Osceola and an Eastern?
Now, I'm not saying
I think that's all arguable.
That's what and when I was talking to him, that's what he said.
I think
you're letting that cat out of the bag a little bit here.
I think some biologists would say we're crazy, but others not. So that's why it's such a cool topic.
So what do you think?
Well, I don't know, but I like the idea of thinking that there's something a little bit mythical about it. But I do remember many years ago being at Portland Landing and on a hunt with a guy from I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember we yelped up a turkey that and let me preface this by saying almost 100% of the turkeys I've ever called up, it always goes through my mind, look how big that turkey is when he walks up. And he's, or if he's especially he's strutting,
right?
And you just go, oh my gosh, look how big it is. And I remember when this turkey came up, I went, oh my, he's like miniature. But he had a full gobble, he had a long beard, but he was just like a mini turkey. But we didn't get him killed. But I can clearly remember that, and I've always wondered if he was one of those. Now, when I grew up in Montgomery, and I turkey hunted in Union Springs. And grew up down there around all those guys, and turkey hunting was a big part of the culture down there. But it was hard. I don't ever remember a turkey weighing more than 17.5 pounds. That's just what they weighed down there. But now when you get closer to Montgomery County, and you start hearing folks talk about killing 19 and 20 pound turkeys.
Well, the one I had particular experience with was actually Mossy Oak Properties office owner that was hunting with us here. It was the same way. Turkey goblin coming towards us. When it shows up, I'm like, well, look at that thing. You know, I was like, God, and we ended up killing it. And the turkey was shorter, squattier, very dark, and had great spurs on him and weighed 13, 14 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Now, where was this?
Cottrell Lake, right outside of town.
Yeah.
So.
It's not uncommon in the South to hear about that.
I need to find that bird. I do. I think, I don't know if Wesley got it mounted or not. It'd be interesting to ask him if he did.
Surely.
I put that on my to-do list.
Yeah, knowing Wesley, I bet he didn't. But I bet there's a photo.
That's probably right. I don't know. We'll ask him. So what do you think, Dudley?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, especially in the Deep South, you hear of people killing these gobblers that weigh 13 to 16 pounds, have big spurs, and they're just kind of a freak.
Right.
And it's rare, but it happens. So
maybe
I think there's something to it.
Native.
I don't know if it's some kind of
DNA
recessive trait that keeps popping up or what, but hopefully some of our listeners will shoot some gobblers in the Deep South, and we could, I'd like to learn more about it.
These recessive traits, that there's something to that, because I see more smoke phase hens now than I can ever remember seeing when I was younger and growing up. And maybe I'm just traveling now more.
I think it's just because there's more cameras in the woods, but maybe not.
Well,
turkey hunting's more popular.
I'm talking about with my own eyes. I mean, one day last week I saw there was a flock of about 60 birds out in the field within 10 miles of here.
Where?
And there were 4 or 5 whitish colored hens in that flock.
This has to be somewhere between here and the Ponderosa. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to follow him.
No, there's no turkeys over there.
Yeah, well,
it's a turkey-free zone. That's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah. But no, this would have been west of West Point.
Yeah, I know where you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, they weren't solid white, but they had white in them. And then there's, back around here, we just occasionally I see.
I'm getting a smoky hen on my cameras at my place right now.
Yeah, that's it. So that's a recessive gene that pops up from time to time.
Yeah,
so what you're describing, if that's how the birds really were originally, it could. It's just like Dr. Chamberlain talking about the wolves. Breeding with coyotes and occasionally something popping up.
Well, look at there.
It's probably no different than that.
Connecting the dots there,
we
Mr.
can do
Cole.
It's just interesting to learn more about this stuff and discuss it and not be so quick to say,
yeah, because you're right. Bottom line is nobody knows everything.
Right.
Well, why don't we get David on the phone?
Let's call him up.
Well, but before we do that,
we
got to keep this thing on track. Mac.
Mac.
Are you texting your wife or what are you doing?
Mac.
All right. So, Mac, you've got a commercial. Why don't we do that, and then we'll roll right into getting David on the phone.
I hope we get to interrupt him again.
Yeah.
I was actually texting David to let him know we're about to call.
Oh, good.
Good answer.
He's over there handling business.
But I got a few rhetorical questions for you guys.
All right.
Rhetorical.
Y'all love wildlife.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You love hearing more about wildlife.
You know I do.
Sure.
Do you think you know everything there is to know about wildlife?
Absolutely not. We were just talking about that.
Then you need to check out the GameKeeper magazine.
Oh, it is. This guy needs to get in marketing right here.
So
got him.
Yeah.
Obviously, this isn't your typical magazine. Our magazine's a quarterly magazine packed full of field-proven tips and tactics and super useful information. Whether you're interested in whitetails, waterfowl, small game, turkeys, or fish, our magazine talks about the creatures we love and how to take care of them. Plus, when you become a GameKeeper member, you get discounts on seed, our native nursery trees, and our GameKeeper apparel.
Boom. And we got this nice little app. We got a little digital version of it. And I saw it this morning. We do have a new website. It's not up and live yet, but we haven't showed it to you yet.
Oh, wow.
I know. We're excited.
We've been talking about this for years.
Yes. We've been working on it for years.
Well, Mac wrote that himself.
Yeah.
That was good.
Mac, you're getting better every week.
Yeah, I took the bait.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, man.
Creatures.
Mac, mac.
Now you've got to beat that next week.
Yeah.
Start working on it yesterday.
Yeah. Well, that's good, Mac. Thank you. I'm surprised more people don't subscribe to our magazine. That's kind of frustrating because it's a really good magazine.
It is.
It's great. But we do, we take that as an information base and we send it out everywhere we can too. So
Yeah,
we're reaching them.
that's right. All right, everybody. Well, I'd like to welcome David Hawley from Mossy Oak Properties.
Our own David Hawley.
Yeah, which one of our
How are
favorite
y'all,
people.
guys?
Man,
Yeah.
we're doing great. How's things in Livingston?
Oh, just peachy, man. It's nice and warm today. It's got me thinking about turkeys, but I say got me thinking about turkeys. I kind of always think about
Yeah.
Yeah, we
you
were
are.
talking about that earlier. You're pretty obsessed about most things, but you take the turkey thing to the next level, even for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely would say I'm obsessed. I do love those little birds.
I was kind of comparing you to to a superhero during the day. He's vice president of business development at Mossy Oak Properties, but as soon as he gets off work, he's the wild turkey report.
It's always in the back of his mind.
Yeah.
So anybody listening to the podcast needs to go and go onto Instagram and follow the Wild Turkey Report, and that is actually something that you do. It's a labor of love, and you try to spread the gospel about wild turkeys on there.
It's a big deal.
A real big deal.
I think it's safe to say that most people listening are probably already following the Wild Turkey Report.
I would think so too.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. The thing I didn't realize I was going to get out of the deal with so many friendships. I mean, people I hadn't even met in person, but I text all the time, talk to them about turkey hunting. So that's been really cool. But the last few years, it's been a good way for, us to kind of, along with what y'all do at Gamekeepers, to share the message of conservation, because I don't think the average turkey hunter in the future is going to be somebody that just can show up on opening day. They're going to have to give back a little bit, help this bird out. I really enjoyed y'all's episode last week with Mike Chamberlain. I thought that was really, really good. And there was a lot of great information in there. So I appreciate y'all sharing that message. And Mike, for joining y'all. I mean, social media has become a great vehicle for us to get the word out of there about some of the challenges that the turkey has going on right now and how we as hunters can help to fix that.
That's awesome. When did you start Wild Turkey Report? You were one of the first in the game, I believe.
Yeah, about 2011, I think.
Wow.
It's hard to believe it's been that long. I hadn't written an article since 2014, but
Been busy.
thankfully the content on the website's evergreen. So
There you go.
it's
Hey,
the same stuff now.
So, David, before we go too far down this road with you, I wanted to be one of the things that's always impressed me about you is as a youngster, you won a bunch of turkey calling contests, and at one time you got to be on the David Letterman Show and Yelp, and that was just such a fun, had to be such a fun moment for you because it's fun for us to watch it. But I didn't realize that you were kind of like, you remember the movie Rain Man where the toothpicks would fall on the floor and the guy could just immediately tell you. I mean, I'm told that somebody can throw out a city and you can tell just almost exactly how many miles it is from you to that city.
No. Well, I do look at maps a lot. You're overstating this. I had seen the show the night before, and it had gone and looked at the atlas and seen where Scottsboro, Alabama was in relation to me. So that seems like a great feat. I know everyone was probably impressed by that. There's a little research that went into that.
So Dudley had a couple of questions for you based on that. And so Dudley,
you wrote them down. It's going to be good.
Bobby, you told me we weren't going to bring this up, so I didn't look up the questions and the distances.
Oh, okay. Well, I misunderstood what I told Dudley because
I will have to say that I looked up the distance between Scottsboro and Livingston, and it is exactly 250.8 miles. So you completely nailed that.
Well, did you say something about 2059 is how you get there too?
Well, yeah. If you take the I-20 to I-59 route, it's exactly 250 miles.
So I would encourage people to go on the Mossy Oak Go app, and they can, Mac, remind me a little bit later how they can find that. But it's just really precious.
It is awesome.
And he makes this unbelievable Yelp an example. I think it's a fly down cackle, if I'm not mistaken. But when David Letterman says, "How far is that?" he says 250 miles. It's really good.
Oh, it's great.
So David,
well, very few people were going to verify that, so I could have said literally anything, and they'd have been like, "Wow." Yeah, you are. Okay, but,
look.
hey, I'm glad
he did his homework. I mean, it's what I took from it.
Yeah. So look, now you're also a fan of something that Lanny and Dudley and I are huge fans of. So I've prepared a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So once we get past this question, we can get down to the serious stuff. So my question is, and I'll direct it to you, David, first, and then if you don't know, you can defer it to one of these two numbskulls.
I would choose Dudley.
Okay.
So the question is, Uncle Versi Ledbetter had a mule that died right before one of Jerry's bird hunts. And the question is, what was the mule's name?
That's not on the CD that I have in my truck, but I have heard that one. I don't know. Was it a traveling salesman that shot it?
No, it was the producer from the RCA Records that flew out there.
That's right.
Dressed like Little Lord Fauntleroy.
Okay, let me hold on now. I'm glad we got on Jerry Clowers because that's kind of one of my traditions is as I'm going turkey hunting, I play the CD. So that's how I know a lot of these stories about. Y'all told the dove hunting story, so that kind of ruined what I'm. But there is a good quick quote that he said. He said, Southerners are naturally funny. He said, we can just say about anything. And someone north of the Mason-Dixon line is going to laugh. He says, I was down in Yazoo City, Mississippi the other day seeing my friends, and a funeral procession came by. And I asked the old boy, I said, who died? He said, Jerry, the one in the first car.
Oh, that's good.
That's great.
So I'm guessing you don't know the name of the mule. I
don't know the name of the mule.
Uncle Versi made 40 good crops with that mule.
I'm going to guess if Dudley doesn't know.
Go ahead.
Well, does Dudley know?
No.
You can look at Dudley.
No.
Is it Bessie?
No.
God. Hey, I tried.
That's a really good guess, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Odella.
Della. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that claw.
That's her soul.
Yeah, made 40 good crops with her. Jerry, just shoot her, and me and the boys will be out there later, and we'll tend to her.
Yeah, we always listen to Paul Harvey on the way to the hunt and back, so I don't know any Jerry Clower.
Taxi's got it, and I know y'all mentioned this. Yeah, he took him and a guy from TNN turkey hunting, him and Bob Dixon, and he has some funny stories from that. So you need to ask Toxie about some of the sayings. He just was a naturally funny guy. He called the overalls overhauls, and he had it was like a 4X or something. And I'm not going to say on air what his comment was, but Ask Toxie is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it was. I remember when he came here, he ate at Anthony's. Anthony's had a lunch buffet.
I remember that.
And somebody said,
I remember that.
Said, Mr. Clower, you didn't get any of that boiled okra. He said, son, I've had so much boiled okra, I can't even keep my socks up.
Oh, me.
So, David, why don't you, we want to ask and talk about, Lanny, being as curious as he is, got us started remembering about stories about the old, I don't know if it's the Moss Head or the Mossy Head. And can you kind of enlighten us with what you know about that legend?
I'll tell you what I've heard, not what I know, because knowing implies fact, and this ain't fact.
Right.
But I will. So on page 22 of 10th Legion, which is obviously the Turkey Hunter's Bible by Tom Kelly, he talks about how people insisted that the Mossy Head turkey was found in the lower coastal plain in the swamps of either Alabama, South Georgia, South Carolina, and essentially that people claimed that was the original and pure strain of wild turkey.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the characteristics he talked in there was that it was a small turkey, It had more feathers on its head. I texted y'all a picture of a turkey that a guy killed there in Camden, Alabama, not far from Portland Landing, that weighed 13 pounds and had feathers up his back. But that's kind of the characteristic of what people say was the original strain of wild turkey. And to this day, I've been on some hunts down, kind of close to Choctaw Bluff and that lower Alabama River swamp. You'll kill a lot of turkeys and see a lot of turkeys down there that weigh 13 and 14 and 15 pounds. I mean, they look like a bantam rooster. I've even seen one that was killed that I can't describe to you how small its head was. It looked like a putter head. And I mean, it had 1.25 inch spurs, very gray looking head. The kind of gray part of his wattles, or caruncles or whatever you call it, that was just more pronounced. Just didn't have a whole lot of color, and his head was just real small. And he was killed, and down at a place called Bullpen. That, I mean, it's as wild as it gets. I mean, it's an hour north of Mobile, and it's just an untamed type place. But that is what a lot of people say was the original wild turkey. Now, Tom Kelly grew up hunting those places, and he said that it's BS in his own words. But that's just, a lot of people have said those sorts of things, that they've killed those swamp turkeys and that's what they weigh and how they look.
Well, I mean, I've done a little bit of research on it, and from what I'm tracking right with you, David, on kind of what my definition of a moss head would be. It would be we talked about this a little earlier before you got on, is a turkey that exhibits more native qualities than, the rest of the ones around him. But even looking back in some journals and you will know a lot, probably be able to validate this. You know a lot more about wild turkey restoration than I do. But it seems like there were some restoration efforts early on where they thought they could just basically raise turkeys and let them go in the wild. And it was a huge failure.
Disaster.
I was reading some USDA documents where there's a particular farm where they were trying to raise turkeys that had more moss head characteristics. So, and I think that was in like that journal was in the 30s I was reading. So it's kind of interesting. So it's like it's like a legend that's always been there. Even in the early days of turkey conservation, it was like they were trying to, and I assume, and you can correct me here if I'm wrong too, the breeding of the turkeys and letting them go never took. It would, because of predation, because they weren't like a wild bird and weren't adaptive enough. But they started trapping turkeys and relocating them, and that's where the successes came in. So it's kind of interesting thinking about that, and then this legend of this Mossy Head. I mean, why not? Like Bobby was saying earlier, when Dr. Chamberlain was talking about interbreeding between wolves and coyotes, he's saying that coyotes, every now and then, some of them will exhibit those wolf-like traits. So,
yeah. Well, and the thing to understand, and that's a great point, Laney, is that a lot of the places where Mossy Head turkeys were said to be are places that continuously had turkeys, even during the dark days.
There you go.
When and I mean, that's something that a lot of the turkeys, that were restocked came from these areas, through the trap and transfer program. So, a lot of it wouldn't surprise me at all to see turkeys that were harvested in somewhere else that would have some of these characteristics.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I'd love to see a study on it someday where,
I don't know, something you could ever prove, I mean, what would you take DNA sample? I mean, how would you even get the original DNA to compare it to?
Yeah.
I don't know how you would.
Yeah.
I like the legend, I like the gray area.
Somewhere somebody's got one of these turkeys mounted somewhere.
Yeah, you're right. I bet somebody's got a Jaguar mounted too.
They probably do. We just can't leave that alone, can we? We got to go back to it.
It comes up.
Yeah.
Look, it's fun. It's fun to have these urban legends or rural legends, I guess. I mean, that's. I mean, we'd run out of things to talk about if we didn't keep these little stories alive. But I just think it's cool to think about turkeys without any sort of influence or interference from domestic strains, possibly still having some genes floating around.
Yes.
I think that's
really
a cool
cool
thing to think about.
100%.
And it's got to be that way because, in Clark County and maybe a little further south where we've been talking about in that above the Mobile Basin, down in the Alabama River Basin, right where it dumps into Mobile Bay. That's where the original turkeys for Alabama were trapped and spread around the state. Okay.
So that being said, is this not a valid point to talk about when we say that we think that there is a southeastern subspecies? I'm just saying, is it possible that we had more native wild stock turkeys therefore our turkeys are more challenging than others? Just throwing it out there for some turkey heads.
Well, yeah, Lanny, I think that's a good point. I mean, these turkeys in a lot of places here in the South have been continuously hunted since Moses got yanked out of the bull races. I mean, that's just part of it. What makes it so cool. I mean, I myself am a 4th generation turkey hunter. I mean, and there's very few places across the country where you get beyond 2 just because they didn't have turkeys, for a long time. But I do think there's also, I mean, Tom Kelly kind of touches on this, but, Dudley, you can probably explain this more on with trees. I mean, sometimes you have site-specific mutations and characteristics.
Sure.
Is it possible that, a turkey that lives in a swamp in the low country that's just one of these gnarly, looks like South Florida, you'll see a lot of turkeys that people will kill and you look at their wing bar and you say, that's an Osceola.
Right.
Well, it's not really an Osceola from the strain of, being of the Osceola strain. Something that in that environment has helped to create that situation that makes that turkey, whether it's, the melanin or whatever they call, with sunlight. I mean, the color, I mean, the nutrients in the water. So, yeah, I think there are some validity to maybe some subsects of subspecies, if that makes sense. But I think that the geography and the, place characteristics can also lend to that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's already so much diversity among, the Meleagris genus.
What's that?
So it makes perfect sense to me.
Hey, I think, I love this conversation about the Southeastern.
Well, why don't
I'll tell you something cool that I got into an argument with somebody in Texas one time, and they said basically if you took a Rio and stuck him in Sumter County, Alabama, that he would sound the exact same because of the air and the terrain and stuff like that. And I was hunting in Kansas one year that was kind of right on the line where you had Easterns and Rios and this big it was a big 500-acre soybean field. And there would be a clump of Easterns and a clump of Rios. And then you kind of have these little hybrids or whatever. But the Easterns, they'd stick out their neck and they sounded like a turkey around here. And then the Rios, they'd stick out their neck and they'd sound like what you'd expect to be a Rio. So I thought that was pretty interesting that, there were still, even though they were in the same setting, that they kind of dispelled that theory of turkey sounding the exact same, regardless of subspecies.
Yeah, I wouldn't think they would either.
Man, no, I know ours sound different.
Yeah, they just gobble harder.
They bring the thump, buddy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, so David, stay on with us right now. Why don't we, at this point, try to get Tim Cosby?
Okay.
And Lanny, there's the number there. If you can Bluetooth it into your phone.
Hello,
Mr. Tim.
Yes, sir.
This is Bobby Cole and Lanny Wallace and Dudley Phelps and David Hawley and a cast of others sitting around having a podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing all right today. Bobby, how you doing?
Well, I'm good. Well, everybody, this is Mr. Tim Cosby. He's retired from the Alabama Department of Conservation. He's there for a long time. And I was telling him you're a lifelong turkey hunter.
Yeah, well, I started when I was in my teens, and I'm 73 now, so that'll give you an idea.
Been chasing them a while.
Been chasing them a long time. hey, I chased them when there wasn't hardly any turkeys where I live.
Hey, I don't guess it ever gets old. That's what we say. What do you think about that?
Well, I haven't seen it get old yet. Now, I've had days that got old, but not the entire season. So.
That's right. It sure is fun. Sure is fun. Well, we appreciate you being here today. Yeah. You're around a bunch of people that love wild turkeys, too. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Well, I do, and fortunately, my family does, and I've got grandsons now that I'm teaching how to do it, and they really enjoy it, and we've had some good times together, and all of it centered around hunting, and a lot of it around turkey hunting. So
that's awesome.
I was, Mr. Tim, I was telling them that you told me that you thought you might be the first person to catch a coyote in a trap in Alabama, or at least your part of Alabama where you lived.
Well, the coyotes, as you know, were not here. We had none whenever I was growing up as a kid, and we ran fox with dogs, and I come from a long line of hunters, and there were no coyotes. The first one I knew anything about, I was running a trap line, and with a cousin of mine, I had two lines. He ran one, and I ran one. I actually set the traps, and he just checked them. He called me one morning, and we had caught a coyote. This was in 1978 in North Covington County near a little town called Rose Hill. That was the first coyote I ever saw in Alabama. And in fact, they didn't believe it when I went back to Montgomery. After deer season, I always took 10 days off and went and run a trap line because I just enjoy doing it. And back then, it was, a little bit of money, and it wasn't a lot, but you just have something you have to enjoy. It's kind of one of those things I've done since I was a kid. And they didn't believe I trapped a coyote, so I had to go back over there to the gully where we put the carcass, and I cut the head off, put it in a bag, and they sent it over to Auburn, and they said it was a coyote. I already knew it was a coyote, but they just didn't believe it. And it wasn't many years. Everybody believed there was coyotes in Alabama because in the 80s, they spread rapidly, and
right.
A lot of them probably could have migrated in. We got a new prey species here called deer, and they could have followed them in, but they could have come across on the interstates. But I think a lot of them were turned loose by well-meaning fox hunters. When red fox dropped in numbers, they just imported some coyotes to run, and without thinking about all the repercussions of what the coyotes were going to do. So. Well, you have to be careful about importing species. That's where I'll leave it at.
Yeah, that's true.
For sure. Well, so look, one of the things what we wanted to talk about today, Mr. Tim, is
legend.
I told everybody that you've been with the Department of Conservation for a long time, and if anybody would know about I don't know if it's the Moss Head or the Mossy Head, maybe you can help us with that. But we were hoping you could talk about that a little bit and help us understand the legend of the Moss Head.
Well, they in Southwest Alabama, they call them a mossy-headed turkey. I mean, that's the terminology they use, and I don't know if it's a distinct species, some genetic trait that pops up occasionally. I actually have killed two that would qualify when I was a conservation officer in Baldwin County and worked in North Baldwin County, which of course is a river swamp country. And that's where they're primarily at. And you get around Clark, Washington, and North Baldwin, those areas, you'll hear them talk about mossy-headed turkeys more than anywhere. The turkey they're describing, and I will go ahead and describe it, and then I'll tell you a little bit about some of the conversations I've had with it, is a smaller framed turkey generally and a darker turkey. He's a shorter legged turkey for whatever reason, but he's a long spurred turkey. The best spurs I ever killed on a turkey, of all the turkeys I've called up that's been killed, he looked like a banty rooster with spurs on him. Is what he looked like. He weighed 14.5 pounds. And he had calves on him nearly 2 inches long.
Oh, man.
But he was real dark. And, of course, being real dark makes his head look real white. And that's why they call him a mossy-headed turkey, because he got that real bright head. And he came out to Hard River Swamp. There's two of them that I've killed down there. The other one was a little bigger, didn't have quite spurs on him, but he was still a nice turkey, and he was a dark-barred turkey. And I've seen a picture or two of other turkeys that came from in the swamp that were really dark turkeys. In fact, one of them was sent to me by a conservation officer, and you could see the barn in them, but they didn't have the likeness to them. Even the barn, it was almost like a black wing, almost like a buzzard wing on him, and it was a unique turkey. And I think now whether that's just a genetic occurrence down there that pops up every once in a while, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't know about any DNA that's been done on them, and they're not in abundant numbers. You get out on the hill, turkeys look just like they do anywhere else, and even turkeys in that swamp all don't look that way. And I talked with the late David Nelson, who was a biologist, a friend of mine that left us way too early. And he was from over in that area, and we talked about it. And he said he thought it might be a recurrence of genetics from a hybrid of Eastern and Osceola turkey that happened a long time ago. And of course, and it could be without genetic testing, you're never going to know what the answer is there. But they do exist from time to time. I talked to the game warden I worked with for years. It's now in Clark County, just to kind of refresh my memory. And he said he'd heard about them, and he said, in fact, he got a call last spring from Washington County. Somebody was telling him they had killed a mossy-headed turkey, a little turkey with big spurs and dark. And so they don't happen every year. I don't guess you get a call. Everybody down there doesn't kill one every year, but they're a unique little turkey, and like I say, it may just be a genetic throwback to something that happened a long time ago. But they are distinctive enough that they have earned a name. So, it's kind of just one of those things that happened down there. And I was fortunate to be down there long enough that I killed some turkeys, and two of them I would have qualified for what you call a mossy-headed turkey. And but now I killed a bunch of turkeys in the swamp that looked just like turkeys everywhere else. They generally are not as large. If you've hunted the swamp, you know that.
Yeah,
I think it has to do with abundance of food there in the swamp. It's not quite as good as it is on the hill, and turkeys are just generally smaller. That swamp turkey weighs 18 pounds, a big turkey, and you get up here in the country I'm in, a 20-pound turkey doesn't even cause anybody to look at you. And if you kill one 22 or 23 pounds, it's not uncommon. So it just has to do, and it may just have to do with habitat. I don't know. I'm not an expert on mossy-headed turkeys. I just have seen what they refer to as a mossy-headed turkey.
Well, on this call, you're the most
expert right here. Everything that's right.
Yeah, you laid your hands on one. So, David, have you got a question?
No, I think he really hit on everything that I kind of had heard, was basically that kind of is something that kind of pops up occasionally down in those river swamps along the Alabama and Tombigbee River drainages.
Yeah, they seem to be more along the river in the heart of the swamp itself. The hill turkeys generally are pretty much what we normally see. It's just it's almost an anomaly that happens, I think, and like I say, it's probably a genetic throwback to something that happened a long time ago, and I have no way of knowing that. I'm just guessing, because if it was a straight species, there would be a lot of them, and there's not. I don't know that they're just real high numbers of them, but occasionally somebody will kill one, and that's what they will class it as, a mossy-headed turkey, and it's generally real dark, fairly small, and got good spurs on him, and of course, by being dark, his head looks a lot wider than on a regular turkey.
So,
go ahead.
If they did a lot of trapping back in the day, if this was one of the original strongholds of the wild turkey, and birds were trapped and moved all over the southeast, I would think that there could be a possible chance that trait could show up, just about anywhere in the southeast that birds were moved to.
Right.
Or I'd like to think that.
I mean, that's
I don't know how widespread the trade is. It's not like they come out in big numbers every year.
Sure.
It's just occasionally somebody will kill one. It's kind of like killing an albino gobbler.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, they exist, but they just don't exist in numbers. And you know, you see white turkeys, and they're the same turkey, but they're different. And what makes them white, of course, is genetics. So I can't say that it's a distinct species. And of course, the turkeys that were stocked were moved, and they've been just like here. I mean, they're a bigger bodied turkey, I think, primarily because we had tame turkeys running loose here when they were being restocked, and they may have got mixed a little bit. You got all that, and you got to remember that even in the old days, let's say the 1750s and past that, people had farms and had turkeys on them. I mean, there were tame turkeys in existence back then on farms and stuff that could have possibly got mixed in with our true wild turkeys. So, as I say, genetics is the only way we could do it, run DNA and see if there's a different DNA strand in them that causes this, or who knows. You know, it's just one of those things that happens down there, and I'll give you every bit of the information I know on it.
We appreciate
you know,
that.
It's just one of those things that occurs occasionally.
Yes,
and they all the people that have lived down there and really turkey hunted all their lives, they are aware that occasionally one of them is killed, and you know, it's just a kind of a neat part of a turkey story down in that part of the world. So,
well, I tell you what, you sound like you're an expert on that part of the world, which I would consider the Mobile River Basin. Wouldn't that be a good analogy?
Yeah, well, I actually worked and spent a good bit of time in the upper Delta area. If you come along there about I-65 where it crosses and go north all the way up to Dixieland and a little further, that was the territory I worked. They're probably the last of the real true wilderness in Alabama, and it was a good place to work, and still would be. Of course, I'm retired long since, and I worked in Montgomery for a number of years. I was actually chief of enforcement for 11 years before I retired, and but my heart's always been in the upper Delta down there. I just love that country. It's always been part of me ever since I spent those years down there in it. And you know, it's just a true wilderness that's left in Alabama.
No doubt about it. I've been fortunate enough to spend a little bit of time down there. Maybe you can help me. You know,
oh Lord,
help me with a little something. You know, here.
Okay.
I just have a personal experience down in that part of the world of seeing. You know, and everybody, you know, I'm sure you've heard these stories before. Bobby doesn't believe me, of long-tailed cats in that part of the world. Is there a possibility? Were there ever there? And what's your opinion on that?
Okay, we're talking about the brown, dark brown cats, or we're talking about black cats?
We're talking about dark brown cats. We are not talking about black cats.
Okay, there is a possibility of a cougar coming through that part of the world, and the reason I say that is back in the 80s, we never said much about it and didn't have much way to prove it. In the swamp up here in the Cougar County, there were some big bean fields, and a bow hunter was scouting, and he was actually sitting in a tree just with a camera making videos, and he videoed a long-tail cat, which was obviously a cougar, come all the way across one of those bean fields hunting. I mean, you know, you could tell he was in a hunting mode, or he, whatever it was in a hunting mode, and went out the field. Now, if it was staged, it's the most elaborate staging I've ever seen, because there was nobody within 200 yards of the cat.
Right.
Now,
across an open
could it have been a pet that was turned loose? Sure. I mean, you run into all kind of scenarios when you start dealing with that. But now, cougars, unlike a lot of animals, have tremendous ranges. People don't understand that cougars just, and particularly a young cougar male trying to locate him a territory, travel extensive miles. And we know that the Florida panther has come up all the way up into Georgia because of what was 4 or 5 years ago, a guy killed one over there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a big hullabaloo about it till they were going to prosecute him and all that till they figured out Georgia didn't have a closed season on cougars. And it was a Florida panther. He turned it in. He carried it and gave it to it. He didn't know he'd done anything wrong. And may have had a tag. I can't remember that part of it. But they move a lot, and they don't stay in one spot. So until they develop a home range. And there was, according to Ralph Allen, who's a biologist who was really involved in a lot of the restocking and all that many years ago when I went to Montgomery, and this is in the 70s, he said that they had actually found evidence in Baldwin County of a cougar den.
Oh, wow.
Now, so how many of them are they? You'd think with the trail cams and stuff we got now that if there were many of them, we start getting pictures of them. They can't be very many, or we would have pictures of them.
Right.
I agree.
Right.
It's kind of like anything else now. You can't go far without getting your picture took. So but again, the fact that there could be some, and again, you've got the abundant prey species for them, which are white-tailed deer. They love to hunt deer, and there's nothing to keep them from being here. They've got lots of big areas to get into that they could stay away from people, and they generally like to stay away from people, and their hunting and travel circles are so wide. 50 miles is nothing for one of them.
Sure.
Well,
so you're making Lanny's just bouncing over here.
I'm beaming.
So I can believe that a Florida panther would come through. It could move up, and I like to think that because I would hope that those things are rebounding and doing well. But Lanny's under the idea that he's kind of narrowed it down. He thinks what he saw was a jaguarundi.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there in the 70s there was a jaguarundi in Baldwin County.
I told y'all that 1973, I think.
Tim is my favorite guest ever.
I forget now exactly the circumstances, but it was confirmed. I don't know if it was killed, run over, trapped, or what. But there was. And this is the early 70s. And again, you're talking about an animal that's pretty secretive and travels a lot. And he's not very big, though. Now, the jaguarundi, if you look, doesn't get very large.
Right.
That's what I believe I saw.
Bobcat size is about what they're all to.
So isn't it interesting how all these stories that you hear through the years at hunting camps, it kind of all centers around somebody saw a black panther.
Yeah, but I never said what I saw was a black panther. Now you've made
I understand. That's why I clarified it before we got started, because I can believe a large brown cat. I mean, listen, it's not only possible, I'd say it was probable that somebody could see one, because I mean, listen, if he's on the border between Georgia and Alabama, that's not far for a cougar to travel and getting into a river system and move up and down it.
Right.
It's just. I mean, the range they have is just really, really big. The Florida panther is supposed to be down at the Everglades, but they kill one up here in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's a long way.
Think about that. How far that is. And it's within the realm of possibility that it could happen. But now, when you get into the Black Panther thing, I think people are actually seeing something in their mind wants them to think it was a Black Panther. Now some of this is, I hate to say it, but it's tricks. I know where there's a mannequin that's painted black, that's got eyes that will reflect, and has been, I don't know lately, but in the past, he has been put beside the road.
We should do that.
hey, listen. Now people, and of course, when they come back, he's gone, because They run out and get him and hide him in the woods. You know, I mean.
Yeah, I saw where somebody. I saw where somebody spray painted a bobcat mount and put a paper towel roll on the end of its tail to make it longer. Yeah. It actually looked pretty realistic.
It's a fun.
Well, this one looks realistic because it is a mounted. It's a mannequin to put a skin on to make a mountain lion
and they painted black.
And it's painted black, and it's got the long tail, and they put some stuff off a bicycle on it in its eyes to make them reflect. So when you run by and the light shines on it, there's a black cat with his eyes shining at you. And,
oh my goodness.
You know, nothing could be more realistic than that to somebody running 50 miles an hour in a car. And they slide their tires, and the time they can get turned around and come back, it's gone. Well, yeah, I saw him, and he run off before I could get back. You know?
Wow.
Some people have too much time on their hands.
That's right.
Is what this boils down
Well,
to.
they just having fun, you know. It's just having fun.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're on turkeys, let me give you a little information. And I'm no biologist, and I'm just going to give you the information that I have. I talked with Bobby about it, and the predator load in some areas, and I'm not saying all areas, is just tremendous. And I didn't realize it until last year, first year we could legally bait. My son set up some feeders, and we put cameras on them. I started seeing an awful lot of coons. That's the first thing. Then we started seeing on the trail cams, we started seeing some other predators. So I said, you know, I'm going to eliminate some of them. So I'm going to give you the numbers now. And this is off of 60 acres. And I have not trapped anywhere but on 60 acres. I trapped 5 grown male bobcats. I trapped 4 grown red fox. I trapped 15 grown coyotes. I trapped 36 coons and 19 possums.
Goodness.
That's pretty clear what's going on there.
You were in the
I mean, now, ground nesting birds have a time. Do they all live on my place? No. They pass through it. There's a creek runs on the lower end of my place, and of course they follow a creek system and stuff. But for me to catch them, that means they had to come through my property at least one time.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And you think about, and I'll go ahead and say this: there are some places local here in Montgomery County that have had professional trappers come on them, and the instant they did, their turkey populations went up.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt it is a factor. Is it the only factor? Of course not. We have bad hatches because of weather. You know, I mean, you have flood out a lot of nests. You have rains and I don't know what it drowns chicks after a while, but if it keeps them wet for 3 or 4 days, I think they get hypothermia. And they just a lot of things can affect it. But if a nest never has a chance to hatch, that's 0%.
That's right.
And so that's just something to think about now. And I'd never really got into the numbers until, you know, it just amazed me.
Tim, you're speaking my love language, because from the turkey report, we've been preaching predator control as a way of maintaining balance, I guess would be the key word, because, you know, we don't have the fur market we did 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so the primary people that are maintaining balance in the predator populations are the people that are doing it to benefit a desirable species such as turkey or quail or deer. And so, you know, I've heard the same thing from professional trappers about how they have seen, you know, doubling and tripling of predator populations over the last 10 years because of these factors.
Well, it just nobody coon hunts anymore and takes coons. If they coon hunt, they don't kill the coon. They just get the dogs off and go on. I mean, what they're going to do with a dead coon? So the predator numbers in areas. Now, I'm not saying everywhere because I don't go everywhere, but in a lot of areas, the predator numbers have just reached really, really high levels. And by associating myself with some of the trappers that do, and I don't do anything for, you know, commercial. I don't trap on other people's land and make money and do those things. But the people that do, where they go, the numbers generally go up. And one thing that is noticeable is the turkey population goes up, the deer population recruitment goes up, and I know you can get too many deer, but it'd be nice for people to control that instead of coyotes to control it. I mean, I just don't see. I just don't see letting coyotes eat up everything you're spending your money to raise, and other predators too. Now, coyotes, in my opinion, take a lot more fallen deer than people give them credit for. You take a 2 or 3 40-pound coyotes, they can pretty much take care of most anything they want to. They don't have to all the time. It's just a full coyote. But when they get hungry, they go eat. You know. So, and they did that study on Fort Rooker that I think it said that probably 70% of their phone recruitment was lost to coyotes.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah. And actually, I'll tell you how serious they think it is. They have actually created on Fort Rooker 2 full-time trapping positions to handle wild hogs and predators. That's what they do.
Wow.
And their deer numbers have started back up. So I'll get off that. I just found it interesting that the number of predators that were in this area right here. And of course, now deer season's ended today. I'll go back to putting a few traps out just to see if anything's filtered in.
Yes, sir.
I was going to bring that up. You know, now's the time to be trapping. I know David and the Wild Turkey Report's been posting about it, saving the poults. And trapping.
Where legal.
Yeah, it is right. And from now to the beginning of turkey season is the ideal time to be taking predators out because you're saving your nest.
There you go.
And I've been so encouraged.
Coons, possums, you know, skunks. There's some things that you can help control. Of course, your avian predators legally you can't do anything about those, of course. But the ones you can, unfortunately, the state of Alabama allows you to trap coyotes, coons, and possums year round. You don't have to quit there. So
that's a good task for a gamekeeper for sure. We've touched on it before, but that's something we need to talk about more in the future. Well, Mr. Cosby, we appreciate you being on the show and appreciate you being passionate about the outdoors and wanting to teach folks, but we really do. And then thank you for being on today, and I'll be in touch with you in the future, I'm sure.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you later.
Thank you, Mr. Tim.
Man, that guy knows about it wasn't Portland and Baldwin County?
No, Portland, it was in Dallas County, I think.
Oh, Baldwin County down there in the coast.
Baldwin's Mobile Bay.
I knew I messed something up.
I have a suggestion, and I think this would be a really, really incredible thing. Y'all need a spinoff podcast called the Cougar Chronicles.
Hey, it's a Jaguar, damn it. It's a Jaguar.
But I think it would be really, really popular, and that would allow y'all to kind of go down this rabbit hole every week.
Yeah,
well, Bobby brings it up every week, so, I mean.
Well, it's his fault.
it comes up a lot. But I will say that we need to talk to Toxie about the Mossy Head because he grew up hunting down there in that part of the world, and I bet you he's had some experiences. And I was gonna text him today about it. He's off hunting the last day of the season, but I'll go ahead and tell you. Y'all may have heard Mr. Fox killed a
he killed a good deer yesterday.
So I didn't want to bother Toxie because I knew he was enjoying that. And they were probably taking pictures and all that. But I suspect he's got some Mossy Head stories.
Okay, I was going to bring that point up. He said they used to refer to them down there as snake eye turkeys. Same principle.
Snake eye.
I'll tell you this from my personal experience, and he was talking about hunting those river swamps. I hunt every year with some buddies down there for a weekend, and I absolutely loathe Alabama river swamp turkeys. They loathe me, and I loathe them back. So I pray for the hills whenever I get done hunting them. So they're not only unique, but they're evil.
Yeah, they're tough. There's no doubt about that. So, well, David, look, we've enjoyed having you on here, and thank you for your patience there. It took us a while to get connected, but we want to have you back on here as well. And we're just a big what you guys do at Mossy Oak Properties. We're big fans of all that.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it all fits together so well, and I mean it's one big family here. And the cool thing about what we do at Mossy Oak in general is we touch every life cycle of the sportsman, every stage. And so I don't know if there's many companies out there or any companies out there that can say that they do that.
No, I don't think there are. So look, everybody needs to go follow the Wild Turkey Report if you don't already. And David, we sure appreciate you being on here. We really do. And we'll do this again.
Absolutely.
Next, we'll have you sing a song for us.
Thank y'all so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks David. Appreciate you being here, buddy. Have a good day.
So, guys, we didn't do a blood on the biologic segment, but it's been so late. I hadn't heard of a lot of people killing stuff, but that was a big deal about Mr. Fox. By the time this airs, it'll probably be on social media.
I hope so.
Probably so.
Yeah, I want to see it. I heard it's a big deer.
Hey, I think it was a good deer too. So,
Mr. Fox, he is something else.
man, that's awesome to see
Yeah,
him
it is.
still out there getting after it.
expect his wife was sitting there with him, Miss Evelyn. So.
Well, I think he was hunting with Toxie, but I did see a picture of him and Miss Evelyn doing a little turkey scout.
Yeah.
I did see
was
that.
A little warm weather.
That's what made me say that. So what a great hunt if Toxie was sitting there with him. Wow. We'll have to find out about that. I can't wait.
More on that later.
Yeah, that's right. So is there anything else? Can we say we learned anything today?
I did. I learned something every time. So.
Wouldn't you love to kill one of those now and really know what you had in your hand?
Yeah, I asked Wesley for if he had a picture of it or anything. So we'll see what he says. So that turkey I was talking about at Cottrell Lake.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hopefully a listener will chime in, and if they bag one, take some photos and submit it. I'd love to keep this conversation going.
Yeah, let us know. So look, this podcast has gone kind of long. Do we have a Ask Dudley question? We can throw in here real quick.
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
You got it.
We do. We've got Ask Dudley from Chris Durano in Southwest Florida.
Yeah, no accent there, I don't guess.
I bet he knows where.
I've been wanting a New York question to come in so Matt could
do his best
fake
New
the
York
accent.
Yeah. All
right. Happy to say my bald cypress saplings that I received from you a couple months ago are starting to show some green and plan on planting them in a month or so. Please suggest what is the closest I can plant each tree from one another while still optimizing growth. I only have about 20 acres. Also, the spot where I was planning on planting will have 3 to 4 inches of standing water in August and September. Will this be okay for the trees? The first few inches of the trunk will be underwater at this young stage.
What species? Bald cypress?
Bald cypress.
Oh, yeah.
Good question, Chris. That can be a touchy subject. You're planting trees. They like to have air and oxygen in the soil so their roots can work and take in moisture and nutrients. So it's kind of funny. If a tree is too wet, it almost simulates it being too dry because it can't drink any water. Cypress are obviously much more tolerant of wet feet than other species are. And so if you're planting these in the spring, they're probably going to be 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 feet tall in Florida by the time your August and September floods get here. So if it's only 3 or 4 inches of water, I wouldn't sweat it.
And is that why a cypress tree pushes up those knees?
People argue that, and I don't think there's any real scientific proof yet. Some people think that's a way for them to
breathe.
Yeah. It's also a way, and you can look at it different ways, but it can also trap vegetation and debris and form more soil above the water level, and then roots will grow in that. So where a cypress really wins the race is if it can ever get some roots up into some dry ground, then it can handle being flooded. But a seedling or a sapling doesn't have that advantage because it doesn't have a big root system yet that's able to find oxygenated soil. So if those trees were to go completely underwater for about a month, it could kill them. And I think you said August and September, but your trees are going to be establishing in relatively dry ground for a cypress until that time. So no, I wouldn't sweat it. Just don't plant something and then flood it completely over its head for a month, and you'll be good.
Thank you, Mr. Know-It-All.
All right, Dudley. That's good because those trees. I guess it just depends on when that water gets on them because we see so many cypress trees that have water on them in the wintertime.
Yeah. Well, the natural cycle is the seeds fall out of the tree, they float up to the edge, and they usually get established in cyclical periods where it's drier.
Mm-hmm. They're a beautiful tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sell a lot of them. I mean, we have a good amount.
We didn't really hit on the spacing, but you can space those things as close as 8 feet together, and really as far apart as you want. But in the scenario he's describing, I would say 15 to 25 feet apart.
And that's a fast growing tree.
Very fast.
Yeah.
A lot of my customers will buy them to plant as future turkey roosting areas.
Ooh.
They have horizontal branching, and turkeys love roosting in cypress trees. If you've ever hunted near a cypress break, everybody's heard turkeys. Maybe they like roosting over water. They feel safer. I'm not sure, but you can put little pockets of cypress on your property. Even if you don't have some nearby water, they'll still grow on dry land. And so think about that.
Love establishing those roost trees.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Oh wait, that's how you know where to start out in the morning.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Dudley. That was good. Well, is there anything else we need to cover? I think we've about done it all.
Yeah, I enjoyed it today.
Been here for a while, yeah.
Been here for a while, but good stuff.
Did we ever determine if it was moss or mossy?
I'm gonna stick with Mossy Head.
I think it's just vernacular. It's whatever you call it.
Bigfoot, big feet.
Snake eyes.
Yeah, snake eyes.
All right, guys. Well, we sure have enjoyed it. Y'all, please, thank you for listening. We hope we haven't put anybody to sleep. And
email us, send us comments. Please let us know what to keep talking about. So
yeah, and then hopefully they'll let us keep doing this, and we'll do one next week.
All right.
Thank y'all.
All right. So Dudley, why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Cleve.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the GameKeeper Podcast, and be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to GameKeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.